And we are live. So, welcome to episode 123 of An American Werewolf in New Jersey. I am the American Werewolf. If you had told me 2 years ago that I would have started a show and been interviewing producers, authors, writers, screenwriters, directors, I would have told you had a screw loose. But as I was saying before we went on, when I returned to the U.S. in 2020, I decided I wanted to take life in some different directions. And so I started this show. And now, 123 episodes later, I'm doing interviews with authors and actors. And so it's a big treat for me to have Tony Atherton, all the way from Glasgow, who took the time to come out and spend a little time on the show here with me today. I appreciate it. Thanks so much for coming on.
Good to be here.
Yeah, and I've got Keith D. Graham, who's the author of, I want to make sure I got it right, The Tackerin, A Story of Loch Ness, which is obviously a bit of a paranormal story. And I grew up watching all the, being in my 50s, I grew up watching all the old In Search Ofs with Leonard Nimoy and seeing, the stories about the Loch Ness and then, making it into, maybe the X-Files. They had a couple of related sorts of things. So that's always been a fascination for me. And Keith decided to write a book about it. And as he was saying, well, I'll let you go, Keith. Tell us a little bit about the book and Tony's contribution to it.
Excellent. Thank you for having us. So I grew up always wanting to write a book. Loch Ness has always been fascinating to me. Just like you said, I watched all those same shows. Just always in my heart and mind, I've always believed there is definitely something there. And so I wanted to figure out why and how and why it's, one of the arguments is always, it should be seen more often. So I had to figure out a good argument for that. So I wrote that into my book. Basically, in a nutshell, the Tackerin are actually an alien race who have come to Earth as a form of sanctuary from another alien race that's trying to obliterate them. Luckily, they find a human in Scotland who is their advocate, and he's dedicated his life to helping save them and protect them from the rest of the humans, discovering them. So I've gotten a lot of great comments on the book, a lot of great reviews, but like I said to you, it really took life after Tony read my book. His voice is phenomenal. He came up with different voices for every character in the book, added sound effects, soundtracks, music. He even sings in my book. It's just one of my favorite all-time songs. It's incredible. The comments I've received on his audio version are just off the charts.
Now, the book is currently available on Amazon. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, and I will put a link to the book in the description.
Thank you.
After this is over with. So I hope people go out there and give it a try. Nowadays with things like Audible, these books are available to put right onto your phone if you're going for a run or, you're just kind of lying around. So there's much more accessibility to audiobooks. I hope people give it a try. I got a quick overlay here. So this is, if you go on to Amazon and you check it out and you see this image, whether you're here live in the stream or come in later or catch it on the replay, and you see this, Keith D. Graham, this is the copy that we're talking about.
Yep, that's it.
So did you end up going out to Scotland or anything like that, or was collaborating with Keith or with Tony? Excuse me. Was that helpful in terms of any of the material, or had you written it already and then connected with Tony afterwards?
Yeah, so the book was written a couple of years before I even met Tony.
Okay.
He and I, It's an interesting story. He and I met on Twitter.
Not Tinder.
We've been going back and forth. Huh? What'd you say?
Not
He said
Tinder.
not Tinder.
Go on Twitter, not
Twitter,
not Tinder.
Twitter.
No,
Okay,
no, happily. So
off
we,
the divorce court. Yeah, off the
yeah.
divorce
No,
court.
no. I don't. No, those records are sealed. He and I are purveyors of dad jokes.
Oh, okay, okay.
So we were firing dad jokes back and forth at each other.
Okay.
And one day I casually said to him, "Hey, have you ever done an audio book?" To which he said, "No, I would love to." And that's how the relationship began.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, there was a little bit more to that story because I had a boat. I live about nearly 2 hour and 45 minutes drive from Loch Ness. And I kept a boat up in Inverness, and we used to go cruising out there. And every now and then I'd be posting pictures of Loch Ness.
Making me jealous.
Keith made some comment about, have you seen
I'd be
Nessie?
scared. Yeah, I'm not going out there. Forget it.
So I drew, as you can I drew a picture of Nessie. I said, yeah, here she is.
Yeah.
So, and I think that kind of led to the conversation about doing the book. The other thing is, he'd never heard me speak before, so he just saw all my pictures in Scotland, and he said, I just thought it'd be great to have an authentic Scottish accent. Well, you can hear my accent, and so I had to say, well, I have to tell you the truth. I've lived here 28 years, but I'm actually from a bit further south, a long way south, about 500 miles. But I think I can do a few of these accents. So I sent him a few. He sent me the script. I looked at it, and I played around with some of the characters and gave them different voices, like some of the bad aliens. I don't know if you remember the British actor Brian Blessed. He was in.
Oh yes.
Gordon's alive. This old Birdman. So I had a sort of mixture of the Brian Blessed with a bit more growth down in here, sort of. But I used to kill my voice after Leif Mann, who's this real nasty, mean bastard of a destroyer. After half an hour of doing him, I had to switch to a different chapter just to give my voice a rest. But yeah.
I think that a lot of people, and we were talking a little bit about film acting and the importance of being a part of the supporting cast, and the sort of underrated perception that they get, because we said a good background works well. You almost don't sort of notice it unless you're specifically keyed to it, but without it you've got this huge gaping hole. In terms of audiobook work, I've given it a couple of attempts. It's extremely difficult. And I'll tell someone, they're like, you're doing what? And I'm like, give it a try. Just try to read something error-free, and I'll set like 3 minutes. I'm like, try it for 3 minutes. Next time you're by yourself, you don't have to do it in front of me, or something like that. Just 3 minutes, no errors, no tripping over yourselves, no ums, no uhs, these sorts of things. Get back to me on that, So I'm like, good. If it works out, great, fantastic. Maybe I've pointed you in a new direction. But other than that, so that is, again, I think extremely difficult work. Not to mention adding voices, accents. These sorts of things. And again, it's another thing that works not so easily, but you almost, when you're listening to it, it doesn't occur to you how difficult that would be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was, this was my first. So, we discussed this and sort of time frame, and actually the time frame was a lot longer in the end, but fortunately Keith was very patient. But also it was a learning curve for both of us because he'd never put one up, and the hardest thing was the technology behind it and the consistency of tone and the rise and fall. As I said, my background was stage acting, so when I told you earlier in our earlier discussion, when I first got onto recording on set, I destroyed a few buds of the sound engineers, booming my voice, thinking I'm projecting it to the back of the audience. The sound engineer, it's just too loud. Yeah, inside voice. So and particularly for things like the aliens, I mean, the Scottish ones, actually, I mean, they were very. My sister's been playing this before she goes to bed, Keith, and she said, her big brother's reading her a bedtime story. She said, my voice in the Scottish accent is so lilting and soft and gentle. She said she's replaying because she falls asleep halfway through. Story, my voice, But yeah, no, just getting that consistency of tone. And I used a software called Audible. And it was very good because you can see the frequencies in there, and there's various filters you can put on to make sure that you don't go beyond certain.
What was
decibels.
the software you used? Audible.
Audible.
Oh, okay, yeah. Okay. I've been using in my experience, I'll use something like Adobe Audition or something like that.
I've got an Apple system here. I tried GarageBand. It was just far too complicated. Audible is. I think a lot of voiceover artists use it, and there's a lot of how-to videos on YouTube. So I went from zero to being fairly competent in it, and even right at the end, the biggest problem was us then getting it fit for Audible, and Audible had a really narrow and quite tight again because they are looking for consistency of tone.
Yes, they are.
They don't want their readers to go up and down on the volume. It has to be within a certain bracket. And I can't remember how many files we had, Keith, about 29, and about 20 of them failed. So I had to go back in and re-edit these things. And then I found another plugin that worked for it so that I could edit it. And but yeah, so there was a huge learning curve. So I think, the next one, which we're discussing.
Oh, very nice. Very nice. Okay, so there's going to be more. All right.
Probably a winter project. And also Keith needs to save up to pay my exorbitant fees. But
buy the book. Buy the book so I can pay him.
Your medical fees and for your throat and all the therapy you have to go through.
Just the money and cough drops alone.
Yeah, that's a lot of tea, man. That's a lot of tea and honey. Jeez. All right, this stuff gets expensive after a while. It's a great story to hear because. And every once in a while on my personal social medias, I have a Twitter account, but it's basically about the show. But on my personal Facebook, I'll post something and I'll say, this is what the internet is supposed to be, And so, being in my 50s, I'm beyond a lot of the, more trendy social media things. I have an Instagram, but I don't know what to do with it most of the time. Here's a picture of me. Hey, and then here's another picture, I'm standing, I don't know what to do with it. But I think the purpose at its highest level for the internet was, or it still is and should be in the future, to bring people together.
Agreed.
Granted, it's also given, DIY people like myself this opportunity to, work something in the back room of my house, that I've converted into a small office to have these sorts of conversations. So, in a microscopic way, I play a part in that too. But the idea that you two could just sort of connect over Twitter, which is the same way Tony and I have connected, but I mean, to work a project like that, shows that the internet actually does have some beneficial uses every now and again.
Oh yeah,
yeah. I think that's absolutely true. It's great, and I've had a few connections come through Twitter that have led to either work or creative collaboration. It's been good.
Yeah, I mean, for me, even seeing on YouTube. Because this is streaming right now on YouTube, it's streaming live on Twitter, it's streaming live on Twitch, another social media platform. I really don't know how to use it, but I just put it out there in case someone might see it or want to see it, and that sort of thing. I mean, it's just it's out there for everyone, and I guess depending on how you put your foot forward with it, you can really have some benefit. For me, just watching other shows, and how they're professionally done. I pick up little pointers here and there, because obviously, like you with working with Audible, you have to teach yourself these sorts of things nowadays. But I think it's great that, that technology is available to us, so that we can do that. You don't necessarily have to go into a huge, it's more accessible.
Yeah.
Whereas 20, go ahead.
Yeah. No, I was going to say, I literally have friends all over the world who I've never met face to face because of the social medias that we use. I've got a buddy in Tennessee who does what you do. He does a podcast on mostly on zombie stuff, but I've never met him face to face. But he and I consider him my friend because we've talked on air before. So it's amazing what you can do.
Yeah, I have a friend in Dublin, this guy Marty, and he runs a similar show to me, and we've been on each other's shows, that kind of thing. I mean, and just he's a night owl, so because he's younger, he is a night owl, and like it's 8 p.m. here in the U.S., so it's like 1 p.m. there in Dublin, and he's still up. He's like, yeah, let's do a show or something like that. I'm like, you sure? He's like, yeah, and next thing you know, it's 10 o'clock here, but it's 3 o'clock with him. And so to have this kind of access, you really have to take proper care of it, and make sure that, as the saying goes, you're using your powers for good, and that kind of thing. So, tell us about the next, Keith, can you let us know anything about the next project, or,
oh my gosh!
Are you playing the cards close to the vest? I mean,
no. I tell you what, I've got so many going on at the same moment. I have 3 books that are published right now. I have another 6 that I'm working on.
Wow, that's a writer. Yeah. Okay.
I really enjoy it. So there is a sequel to the Takaran, of course, the Takaran 2. That's real creative, I know. Those are both on Amazon. I also have a zombie book on Amazon. Called Storm. That was a lot of fun to write. And I do have a 3rd book coming in the Takaran series. And then I have, like I said, another 5 or so that I've been developing.
Okay. So, I mean, for anybody who's watching this who, might be looking for any tips or pointers, I mean, just, a general overview kind of thing. What suggestion? Do you have any suggestions that you would make? Is it because I had this guy on who had just had he had written many screenplays because he's a writer, so he's always writing, but he had finally had one made into a Tubi original movie.
Nice.
So one of the local streaming services here in the U.S., Tubi, decided to take his screenplay and, turn it in. And he was so excited. He was like, you could tell he was just going to be buzzing for like the next 6 months.
Of course.
And so, I had him on here. He gave, tips, pointers, general, kind of, things. Is there anything that you would say, anything that you would suggest to anybody who's out there thinking about it, doing it, struggling with it, that kind of thing?
Of course. The best piece of advice is don't listen to anybody. I tell you what, I've had more conversations with folks. Honestly, I've had more conversations with folks who have wanted to write a book and have been dissuaded by their family and friends. And so they just never do it. So the first advice is don't listen to anybody, and don't tell anybody you're going to write. Just do it. Just write it. One of the coolest stories that have come out of this for me, after the Takaran first came out, I was messaged by a woman in Canada, 89 years old. She said, it is so, because she read my story, the history of why I decided to write. It came from a quick incident. It's on my author's page. You can see it. But I was told by the doctors that I was going to die. And I didn't. Here I am, I hope. And so I said,
Seems that way.
Yeah. So I said, what? I always wanted to write a book. I'm going to write a book. And that's how I started. So this 89-year-old grandma had written stories for her kids and her grandkids, and just to read to them. And she wanted to publish them. And everyone told her that's silly. So she said after reading my story, she was going to get her books published.
Good for you, man. Good for you.
Anybody who says no, don't do it, tell them to go away. That's the best advice. Second advice is write every single day. Even if you just write a sentence, you know, but it's just like that muscle memory. If you don't do it, you lose it. So every single day, write a note to yourself. Once you put pen to paper, you're a writer. No matter what anyone says, you are a writer. You have now written. Whether it's published or not, you are a writer. So just go do it. Okay.
So persistence, just keep at it every day. Write something.
Yep.
And don't listen to the naysayers.
Yeah. And and I keep a voice recorder on my phone. So I'll be driving home and I'll think of a great line. And if I don't either write it down or record it, by the time I get home, and I'm like, it was such a great line. And now I don't know what it is. So I have a recorder on my phone. If I don't have a chance to write, I'll record it. Keep pens and papers, anything around you. Don't lose a great idea.
Okay. That's really solid. Hold on a second. I want people to be able to see this and add into the stream. This is Keith's Amazon page. So he is right there on Amazon.com. And there's a photo. You can follow him right there, which I'm happy to do. And you've got his books, The Tacharon. They're very inexpensive, $2.99, $4.99. So they're within budget for Kindle editions. The Tacharon 2. You've got descriptions here. You can pick them up with one link. Kindle Unlimited, so you can pick them up for free if you're paying the Kindle price. And I imagine the same goes with Audible. So you can look these up very easily. You can look them up in all formats: audiobook, paperback, hardcover, anywhere that you can, any format that you can find books. You can find Keith's books here. So take a few minutes and look them up if you're looking for something good to read and something fun, because that's what it sounds like.
Download the Audible, and I can send you to sleep.
Yes.
That was the earlier chapters. It gets more excited and deadly later on.
I tell you what. When Tony was sending me all these samples, hey, check out chapter 5. Hey, check out chapter 10. I mean, it was incredible. I know. I wrote those words, but then to hear them spoken, I mean. Honestly, there's parts that brought tears to my eyes. It just moved me to hear those words spoken. It was amazing to me.
I think as Americans, we also have a fascination. It's sort of a joke, but it's sort of not. We have a fascination with European accents.
Yeah.
So we're like, wow. I remember, back in the 20 years ago or something, where we were listening to George Bush, and I was, oh man, this guy. And then Tony Blair would come on, and you're like, wow, it's like hypnotizing. You're like, wow, why can't our guy talk like that?
It almost sounds smarter, doesn't it?
It does. He sounds like he knows everything with that accent, and you're just like, wow.
Well,
I mean, that bullshit just sounds so much better when he says it.
My description on Twitter is, I was born in New York. My body lives in Orlando, Florida, but my heart belongs to Scotland. So I feel drawn every time I hear the voice or I see an image. It just draws me in. My granddaughter is named after a place in Scotland, and it just it's in my DNA. I know I've got to get there.
So, I mean, that was the next question. Hopefully you guys at some point will have a face-to-face meeting. You can sit down and
I was hoping
scotch or beers or coffee or whatever it is you choose to do, but that would be, that would be the ultimate.
Yeah, it'd have to be over a dram or two.
Yes.
Or three.
Yes, most definitely.
And that's when she makes most of her appearances. You get out there on the water with a bottle of single malt and, after
on the lock.
The smell brings her up. It's just
there you go.
Yeah.
I'll have to grow my beard back.
That would be a proper meeting, as they say. I think that would be fantastic. That would be cool. Yeah. Is there anything that you would like to talk about, Keith? Anything you'd like to plug? Where people can find you on social media? That sort of thing. You said you're on Twitter, so where can they find you? Do you have an Instagram page? Anything like that?
I do have Instagram. I do have Twitter. Twitter is at KDGram65. I'm on there all the time, throwing the jokes out there. If you love really bad dad jokes, come join us. You'll get them there.
I'm normally commenting on it. I'm normally commenting towards how bad, what the groan factor is. It's got to have a groan factor 3 to be a dad joke.
My goal in life is to make Tony message me and say, "Oh, that was bad." That makes my day.
Despite my aversion to dad jokes, I'll probably join you on there anyway because it just sounds like a lot of fun.
You said you have an Apple phone?
Who, me?
Yeah.
Oh no, I have a Google, one of the Google.
Okay.
Pixels.
Okay,
No,
good.
I'm not.
You're not an Apple person.
No, Windows primarily and Android. I have an iPad around here somewhere, but
okay. Well, you just went up in my estimation of you then because you don't have an Apple phone. Thank you. But I was going to ask you, do you know why Elon Musk only puts Apple computers in his rockets?
No, because he'll have to.
Because everybody knows you can't. Everybody knows you can't open Windows in space.
Okay, well, it's been nice talking to you, and that's the end of the show for tonight. My thanks to. Okay, well, I'll attribute that as a forewarning, so I know what I'm in for when I find you on there. So, very awesome.
That's a sample.
Hey, man, what's the weather like down there? We've got about sunny and 80 right now. You've got about 500 degrees right now, don't you?
Oh, it's perfect today. It's 95.
Okay, 95 and humid?
95 and humid is not the word. The best way for you to experience weather in Florida is go take a really, really hot shower and then put your clothes on. Don't dry off. Just put your clothes right on right after the shower and go outside. That's what it feels like to live in Florida.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't go, Tony. Don't go. All right. Just have them come to Scotland.
The sun's come out for about the first time today. It's 60 degrees here.
And now you guys have constant overcast weather, don't you? A lot of overcast.
We have this June. It's been awful. The first year of lockdown was great. I mean, we had an amazing May, June, July, which was great because everybody was locked in. So at least we were able to get out in the garden. But this year, no, it's been. We actually lit a fire, a log fire. Very Scottish, sitting there with our woolies on and
at the end of June. Okay, we're not having that here.
Crazy, but
good grief.
You don't come to Scotland for the weather.
Okay, all right. I'm going to change tracks in the conversation away from Nessie. Keith, you're welcome to hang out. I'm just going to chat with Tony a while about Origins or, whatever you'd like to do.
Yeah, you know what? I'll turn the floor over to him. I really appreciate you letting me know about today. Great seeing you, Tony, as always. And I truly appreciate my time with you. I'm actually on the clock. I need to go to work.
Okay. The next time, I'll tell you what, we'll connect on Twitter, and then if you're interested, I'd love to have you back on to discuss, your next projects once those, start to become tangible. And
most definitely,
I'd love to talk some more.
And I want to connect with your friend who does screenplays. I want a movie made.
I'll send you his. I'll DM you the whatever. I'll send you his profile. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. My thanks to Keith Graham for stopping by, and you have a great day, man. And
you too.
All right, take care.
Take care. Bye.
Back to work. Go on. Back to work.
All right. So that was cool. That was cool, actually. Yeah, he's a nice guy. That's
we really connected, and more so over the characters as well, and that was just really lovely to hear that sort of feedback. When I was sending him the first few tapes, he just said, "Oh my God," he said, sent shivers down my spine. And my wife was sitting there. We just hearing my words reverberate in the word and the characters you're bringing out. It was a great feeling. And then there was one particular chapter. I think, as I said to chat today, it was 9 or 10, and it's deep, it's dark, and I found this music, royalty-free music that I put on there, and it just got the atmosphere, and my voice slowed down, and I just read it out, and it was quite dramatic and heartrending, and at the end of it, I was almost in tears. I kind of played it back, and I sent it to him. I was just so proud of it. That I thought, wow, yeah, when you create something like that out of somebody else's words, it's your interpretation and your play on it, but it's their take, and then for them to hear that and say, wow, I wrote that, but that is a great interpretation.
I was just going to say that, it sounds like you breathed life into, his project and, made some part of it your own. I mean, not to sound too cliche or anything like that, but, that's definitely what it sounds like.
Well, you do that anyway. You do that anyway in any role you're playing. You make it your own. You become that person, and you take. There's several movies out there that been played by different actors, and everybody has a different take on it. You see a different actor play it differently, and then you think, oh, I like the way the last guy did it. Then you get more into it, and think, I kind of see where that's going, and that's what art is, isn't it? It's different interpretations, different input.
That's very true. Talk to me a little bit about some of your stage experience. I mean, for me, we've talked about, and I have several friends that are regular guests on the show, like I said, that, here in the U.S. that are regulars on the stage. And, my understanding of it, I've never done any performing. Like I said, I've made some attempts at voice work, which is, not the same thing. But, that in many regards, stage is sort of held as the highest kind of form, in terms of what's possible, in terms of maybe pure art, that kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, I think that, there's a huge difference between on stage and being on TV and film. So your listeners don't know, but we discussed that earlier. I'm very new to the TV and film thing, and it was a second career for me. So I was wanting to go into theatre school. I had a couple of rave reviews of, high school productions, big high school productions. I played Oedipus in Oedipus Rex, very deep and dark, serious.
Yes.
The original MF. And then I also played Shakespeare, Henry the Fourth Part 1, where I was Prince Hal.
Okay.
Slaying Harry Hotspur, and in fact, it's where my wife saw me in that, and saw me in a pod piece, and the rest is history.
She had no choice in the matter. Yeah, that was it.
Well, so, but then Keith was saying, don't listen to people, talk you out of things. And my English teacher talked me out of it. He said, Tony, you could go to drama school. You're very good. You could be a very good actor, but the life, you could make it or you can break it. It could be hell. You can end up waiting tables. You really should think twice, and basically talk me out of it. And then I did particularly well in geology and geography, and I went on to go to university and do geology. And I had a very long and successful career in the oil industry. But it never stopped me wanting to act and perform. So, yeah, as you say, a lot of your friends there, you can join some local companies and they can be very good quality. So one of the local groups here, it was actually when my daughter was there, she was doing Annie. She was cast in a title role, and I was up every night picking her up and bringing her back again. And the director said to me, she says, well, why didn't you do this? Oh, I'm busy. I'm working. And she says, well, lots of guys work. And I'd heard stories about them being really strict if you missed one rehearsal, because they were very, very professional and diligent about this. you know, you were out. No, it's not quite that bad. But anyway, so I went for the next thing, and so my first performance was as C.J. Scruggs in The Best Little Whorehouse in Texas.
Is that right? Okay.
Absolutely fantastic. So I think I was in my 40s by then. You know, I mean, but got back on stage, and I had
that's great to hear. Yeah.
My whole department there, including my secretary, and I was department manager. I was chief geologist by that time, and I had all my team there. And it was a big theater. It was a 300-seater theater. We were packed out for a two-week run. So it was a big, you know, local production. And there's one scene there where I played various roles, but I don't know if you know The Best Little Whorehouse. There's a scene where the Aggies win the state cup, and the governor sends them to the chicken ranch, which is the whorehouse.
Yeah.
You know, and in the film, it's got Dolly Parton and
Burt Reynolds.
Burt Reynolds, yeah. And she sings "I Will Always Love You" in the film.
Yeah. Okay.
It's not in the musical. She wrote.
Okay.
But it's not actually in the musical. Little side story. But there's that scene. So we have this thing. So we get there. We have to do this Aggie dance, and then we strip off out of our football gear down to our boxers and cowboy boots and hat. We do this throw-down dance, and then we end up going back to the whorehouse, and we strip off again down to our boxers and cowboy boot and hat, and we're doing this dance, and I'm absolutely dripping in sweat after this cowboy dance. And then we have to do this freeze, because then the preacher comes in and closes the whole place down. And we're sitting there, you know, these girls are dressed in very skimpy little basques and negligees and things. And the comments next day was, my secretary says, "Well, I'm never going to look at my boss in the same way again." You know, you were having too much fun sitting on that lassie's lap. And I was trying to lean forward because the sweat was dripping off of me and not drip onto her. And it was just, and we had to hold the pose. And then the strobe lighting, we were running around, and it was hilarious. Great songs and great music in that. So that was the beginning of the stage stuff. And then after that, I think I actually had to do some tap dancing in 42nd Street. I was very much in the back row. I could do shuffle ball heel, and keep it simple like that. But my two best roles were the mad dentist in Little Shop of Horrors. That was a great one, you know, with laughing gas. And then I had a break. I got transferred overseas, and you know, couldn't make the rehearsals. But when I came back, and this was a few years ago, some of the old crew had formed a new production group, slightly more professional, that had all put money in and got some grants and funding, and they wanted to put on Spamalot. And I don't know if you're a Monty Python fan at all.
Not exactly. I'm very familiar with it, but yeah, I'm not. Yeah, not.
Spamalot is the musical from, you know, and it's a bunch of basically the film The Life of Brian, and but with other Monty Python sketches kind of woven into it. So I played the brave Sir Robin, who basically just runs away.
You have to fight another day that way, man, you know.
But the interesting thing there, I had this big song. It's a great song, and Spamalot actually opened on Broadway, and there's this song, and he says, "You won't succeed in Broadway unless you have a Jew." And of course, you know, the whole thing about New York, the Jewish backers, and it's a very of course, you know, the sort of Mel Brooks type thing, parody of themselves. It wasn't offensive, you know, it was taken because the Jewish community is a very, very huge part of the New York theater scene, the owners, the angels, everybody. So this sort of thing, and so it ends up with this. There's a dance in there where they do that sort of comedic version of the Fiddler on the Roof, you know, the guys going down and doing with the bottles on.
Yeah.
And then the British version of it said they did a bit more like Simon Cowell's Stars in Their Eyes. And so you won't succeed in Broadway unless you have a star. And it was just so wet compared to the American version or the original version. And so you basically took the Mickey out of whoever was a celebrity at that time. So we decided to go with the original version, and most people liked it, but a few people go, "I'm not sure you can say that these days in this sort of, you know." But there's nothing offensive in it. It's just mentioning another religion by name in a musical. It's quite interesting in a rural Scottish or background, how people took to that. And again, I think Monty Python is a bit like Marmite. Some people love it and some people hate it. So that was it. And then I just started. Go on, sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So after that, I started trying to break into TV and film. As we mentioned, there was a.
Was that just hey, I'm just now, because it seems like you've got this ball rolling, and you're working with professional people. I like that you said that, in that, hey, you're not going to miss one rehearsal.
Yeah.
Because I have a friend, he's a regular on the show, and he was going to recently direct a production of Much Ado About Nothing. And the production ended up falling apart because various people just ended up sort of, ditching, they didn't have much skin in the game, that kind of thing. And the production ended up falling through. So I like that, you said, you were working with, professional kind of productions and serious people having fun. Don't misunderstand me. But so, okay, now you got the ball rolling to that. So how did you form the idea? Wait a minute. I'm just, because that's a leap. Isn't it? I mean, did it just occur to you one day, like, now that I'm doing this, how a path will, and then another path and then another thing, that it just piggybacks. Is that how it worked, or?
No, I'd always had a feeling about it. I've always been interested in film and TV and acting. There are actors I will watch. I'll watch a film just because they're in it, because they are just such great actors and interpreters, and particularly if it's a story that And I just thought it just would be cool to be on a TV set and to do this. So I got some headshots done. I signed up with a couple of agencies, and then I got this, as I mentioned, this thing, the Adelia Hughes short film. It was a student project. I applied for that, auditioned for it, got it. I mean, it really wasn't paying any, pennies, but I just wanted to break in. I wanted to get some footage so that I can use for show reel, because that's the thing you got to get. Got to get a show reel, and that's really what I was doing the last few days, which we discussed. I'll tell you about in a minute. But so I wanted to get some good footage of show reels rather than home videos, and you've got a story, you've got other actors to interact with. And this young girl had made a couple of movies, short films. They'd gone on to film festivals.
This is Eleanor Smith, correct?
That's Eleanor Smith, yeah.
Eleanor Smith, okay.
Used two names. Elle Delaney, I think she uses on that. But and so we went down, did that. It was great. I did manage to get some of the footage, and it was up on YouTube. It was put into to a couple of film festivals, and as you found out, it's disappeared from the internet. So I've emailed what's happened, because we did stay in touch for a while, but then shortly after that, I got a gig on Peaky Blinders, which is a real, I don't know if big in the States, but it's a real.
Huge. It is enormous here in the United States. It is an enormous show, and the 6th season just came out. I binged the whole thing, and it's just I have an image overlay here. Hold on. I believe that's you right there, right?
That's me looking fiercely at Tommy Shelby.
Yeah, exactly. At this ridiculous family, rightfully so, I'm sure, because these guys are just absolutely preposterous. The Shelby family. Holy crap.
Yeah. Well, he's, Tommy Shelby is basically, they're a criminal gang from Birmingham. Right. But the strange thing about the show is that they're awful people.
Yes.
They're called the Peaky Blinders because they sew razor blades into their peak caps and use
remember.
them. But you can't help root for them, as they rise up. They're always fighting this glass ceiling. They come from a Romany gypsy background, and that's always part of their culture. So no matter how much Tommy Shelby rises up and tries to become a respectable businessman, of course, he's always got this other side. The interesting thing about Peaky Blinders, you see that when he gets up amongst the elite, the lords and ladies and MPs, they're all corrupt, but just in different ways. And they use their power against him and snobbery. And so you can't help rooting for him. And in that particular scene, He's playing Oswald Mosley, who is an MP. He was a Labour MP, but he became the leader of the fascist party just in the pre-war, the Black Shirts. And so Tommy Shelby's playing him. He actually secretly works for Churchill.
Yes.
And,
Yeah. There's a lot. There's a lot of intrigue going on there, man.
It's brilliant. Yeah.
I've talked to people about this, and I've noticed. They're sort of. Would you classify the Shelby family as? Are they anti-heroes? I mean, they're clearly the protagonists, but they do awful things. It's one of these things where you see, any chance that there is for some sort of redemptive arc, at the last second, they just double down in the other direction every time.
Yeah.
But they're put up against people that are worse.
Yes. I think you've nailed it.
That's the trick.
They're put up against people who are worse. And so they keep trying to reform. I mean, Tommy Shelby, he's the younger brother, but he's the leader of the family. And Aunt Polly, who
who passed,
who just sadly passed last year. Great actress, and she's the matriarch almost of them. And they keep trying to bring it back to a business, and they run it like a business, except that the business is based on crime. But the interesting thing is that Tommy Shelby won't do. He only does marijuana. He won't get into cocaine until it's his nephew, Michael, who comes through and gets involved with the American mafia and things. But the upper class is there. I mean, everybody tries to do them, so he just has to resort to, the old ways.
And the upper classes are just more formally invested in corruption.
Absolutely.
Whereas his kind of corruption is kind of low level. They just have these people, and especially in the last season. They're connected to the Americans, and these Americans have tons of access to the president, and they're awful. They're just awful.
Here's a real life story here. This is nothing to do with acting. It's in my former life, I was trying to negotiate an oil deal in an Eastern European country, which is fairly war torn at the moment. Previous government, and I was talking to the guy that he was head of geology at the time, but he was going to go on to be their next Minister of Energy. And I was trying to do a shale gas deal in this country and bring my company in. And I was provided with, if you want to walk out of this meeting by my company, do so. No envelopes, nothing. We have got to be squeaky clean on this. We're a North American company, even though I was in the British branch. And we have to be absolutely. But I was giving this guy the line, and through the translator, he basically says, "Mr. Atherton," he says, "you come to me and you lecture to me about corruption. Let me tell you something." He says, "In your country, you have people, they're called lobbyists. These lobbyists and they pay money to get access to an MP, and then the MP will try to swing the vote in there." He says, "The thing is, you have as much corruption in your country and in America and in Canada. We're just more honest about corruption." You want this here? You pay. So anyway, at that point, we drank a lot of vodka, and then I went back to the hotel room and got the next flight home and said, "We can't do a deal here. It's not good." But
whereas, because I've been in places in Asia and South Asia, and these sorts of the developing world and these sorts of things, where like the news is practically the guy putting the money in his pocket. You could that'll be on tomorrow's episode. This, that, or the other, where we clearly have a much more formalized structure, but it's kind of the same thing. Or I can't tell you you're lying, but I got to tell you this anyway, and here you go.
Lobbyist.
It's a hell of a thing.
So I think Tommy's an anti-hero. I think.
Now, did you get a chance to interact with any of the, Cillian Murphy or, any of these sorts of, or is that
On Peaky Blinders, no. I mean, Cillian was, he's just focused. I mean, he goes off, takes himself off. I was sitting right next to him. We have, exchange a few niceties. But
It's professional.
The ones I've probably had the most interaction was Belgravia, where I was Lord Derby, because I'm actually in a scene with Tara Fitzgerald, Tom Wilkinson, Harriet Walter, and so we're chatting in between the takes, and Tara Fitzgerald got her the dressmakers, they were coming and pegging up her skirt because it was hot. And so we were just about, and it was fine off, when we were in between takes, but we were just about to go on, and I had to call her back and said, "Excuse me, do you mind if I unpeg you?" So she was sort of laughing about that, but that just hadn't been noted. You don't want to peg on someone's skirt in the middle of the 1870s. One of the funniest interactions was Olivia Colman in The Crown. And she's been award nominated for so many things. So she's playing Queen Elizabeth. And we were shooting a scene up at, it was meant to be the Balmoral Games. So it was close to Aviemore up here in the Highlands. And we had a whole mock Highland game set up. We had bagpipes, caber tossers, people, Highland Games people. And I was a games official in that. But at the beginning of the scene, it never actually made it, unfortunately, to the final cut, which is another thing. You see the whole thing, and then you see the director's cut. But this particular scene, they had a guy, and it was meant to be a tradition to opening the Highland Games. So he's tossing this haggis. So Prince Philip comes up, played by Tobias Menzies, hands him a haggis, and we all sort of throw it, and everybody's mime acting, because that's the thing. They always put the sound in afterwards. So we're all going. And then the director comes on and says, "You know what? This is not working. Tell you what, I know I normally ask you to say mime. Everybody cheer, because this is fun. It's the beginning of the Highland Games at Balmoral." And so Olivia comes and says, "So would the Queen be cheering as well?" She says, "Yeah, I think the royal party would be cheering." So we do this scene. Prince Philip gives him the haggis. He tosses it. And everybody's cheering and clapping, and then cut comes across. "Olivia, darling, I think the royal party, the Queen would cheer, but she wouldn't go, whey!"
Well, you don't know that, do you? Everybody's an expert.
She's just a down-to-earth character, and she was walk past yourself, bit of a giggle. This, isn't it? I am just off for a ciggy, and so yes. On the Crown, certainly did. And then I can't talk about it because I'm still under NDA. No, I can't. But in the next series, I'm interacting with one, and I had a lot of interaction there because we were in a car driving backwards and forwards.
Well, I'll look forward. Maybe when that happens, next time you're ready, we'll have you back, and I'd be happy.
Well, that'll be the next series. That'll be the next series that comes out. So yeah, that'll be series 5. Yeah, series 5.
All right. So hold on a second. We got a couple of comments here.
Yep.
From Twitch, that the social media platform I don't know how to operate. We've got a guy, refreshed Pixels, who's a friend of mine in Bangalore, India, and he's saying hello. Like I said, I lived in India for 7 years, so I made a lot of friends out there. Glad to be able to catch you live. And he's enjoying it. He says it's amazing. So with The Crown and Peaky Blinders, those are global, runaway kinds of shows. And just, you said you met Tom Wilkinson. I'm a huge Tom Wilkinson fan.
Yeah, but it was really funny. Again, the director came up and said, right, because the seat was empty. Harriet Walter was there. She was chatting away, and we were sitting at the dinner table. The scene was explained. Basically, this young chap was going to come in, who was the unknown grandson to Tom Wilkinson and Harriet Walter, had been raised by another family. And there's all a bit of intrigue as to who this mystery young man is, because he suddenly appeared in London in this society scene. So it's a big dinner party thrown. So we're all in our posh gear, 1870s. I had my hair curled up, great having the hair done. And then so there's an empty seat there, and the first AD came over and says, right, so Tom's going to be coming in. You all know Tom Wilkinson? We're all going, well, we know of him, never met him before.
Yeah.
One of Britain's greatest actors,
Yeah. That's no small thing.
Oh yeah, we're like this, Anyway, it's Tom's. He's got a few pains, but he might not talk to you. He might just ignore you. But that's just Tom. Don't take it personally, or he might be fine. But just don't take. We're going. Somewhere the fear of God in us, thinking, is he going to come down and snarl at us or whatever?
Yeah, that made it worse. Yeah.
Anyway, he was fine. But it was at one point, the camera's coming up behind me, and I'm sort of standing up, ready to go, and he's staring me out in the eyes. And I thought, is he trying to outstare me? So I stared him back, and eventually this grin came up in the corner of his mouth. I'm like, you bugger, you were trying to stare me out. But great. It was a great show. That I love doing period dramas, and a brilliant cast to work with. It was, you can just learn so much watching them.
Yeah, you've got a lot of experience in that casting list. I mean, it's even Killian. I mean, just a ton of experience. I remember him from was it The Wind and the Barley?
Yeah.
The IRA movie, and I remember him from back and then 28 Days Later. I mean, he has so much range. Then to go to a Danny Boyle movie like 28 Days Later, and now to Nolan, and whether it's Batman or Dunkirk or these sorts of things, and then Peaky Blinders, and Tom Wilkinson has done everything.
Yeah.
And Tom Hardy and Adrian Brody, and I mean, it's every experience must be just like. Do you pick things up? I mean, just through observation.
Definitely. I mean, that's one of the things I'm on. I mean, you hope you're going to get noticed. You hope that it's going to be moved up. I mean, the worst thing is if you're in deep background. Deep background, so basically some man in the background just walking past.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't get anything out of that apart from a day's pay. And sometimes and sometimes you don't know. And then other times, right, you're going to be standing here and you're going to be interacting with the main characters. And that is great because, as we said, you have got to be, you're going to be in camera. Your facial expressions are going to be in camera, and you have to react the way they are reacting and not be dumbstruck or anything like that. So because bad background can ruin a good scene.
We talked about that, before we went on.
Equally, great background. You don't notice it. It just looks natural. They are in a park. They are in a cafe. They are in a restaurant or whatever. And sometimes it's that reaction. If they're making a scene, you've got to react to it. You wouldn't just ignore them. But you can't go, you can't overdo it.
I'd be starstruck.
So the thing I've learned, the difference between TV acting and stage acting, and that's just from being, background roles and supporting artist roles, is little is more, less is more, and it's kind of right, an eye roll,
hell yeah,
slight quarter of a turn rather than the whole neck, and or a glance. Those things are just so much important. So I'm picking that up all the time. I'm also picking it up actually from other background artists who have been working a lot longer, and you get to chat and and it's good, actually. I had a lovely comment the other day. I was on another big Netflix thing, and I can't say because it's NDA until it comes out next episode. But the first AD came up and said, "Oh, you're working with one of my favorite essays." And she said, "Oh, is that Tony?" He said, "Yeah. Oh, I worked with him back on Tetris." And it was just really nice to have that that kind of feeling, that sort of playback. That there are the ADs and the directors are actually watching you. And if you do a good job, you will get asked back. And then maybe next time you get the lines. That's the big thing. Do you get, everybody says, "Have you had a line yet?" I'm working. I'm getting closer.
Let me take a quick step back. I don't want to go too far back, but how does that, how do you, is there just an announcement? Hey, casting for Peaky Blinders or casting for The Crown, and then you just kind of throw your name in? Is that how it works? Or do you know someone and you're like, hey, I could do something here, and they're like, yeah, okay, come on,
So generally speaking, if it's a part with lines, it's called a walk-on if it's not a main character, and they will put that out to the agencies and they say, right, we've got a walk-on role, we're looking for this. And then if you are, so then you get put forward. If you fit the look, then they'll get you to do a self-tape. So you send in a self-tape. So So I've done a few of those. I got right down to the final this was for an advert actually, and I was told I blew them away on the self tape, but then it went to the product owner, the client, and they wanted somebody different, and this was actually for an illness, and I had to have a look for that illness.
Oh,
even though
okay.
even though I had a knowledge of it, I didn't have the larger
Right.
to go with it.
Yeah.
So, but that was, I got great feedback from that. That was probably the closest thing to that. But so yeah, that's generally how it happens. A spec will go out for this character, and it'll be a walk on 1, which is a featured role, or walk on 2 with lines. And I think there's 3 of them. After that, you get onto equity rates, and you're a proper cast.
So is that what you would consider to be like the next step, like what you'd like to do?
Yeah, I think the next thing is to get, I think what most people are looking for is representation. So you got to get an agent to take you on, and then they'll push you for these roles. But to get there, you need so many credits. It's a bit like catch-22. You've got to get so many credits. Well, how do you get your credits without getting an agent? Well, you get at the end, you've got to get spotlight registration. I can't get my spotlight registration because I've got so many credits. And so and then a lot of what I do isn't credited. You get, you're on there in full view, but you don't get a full credit. So
we've just met over an hour ago for the first time, for full disclosure. We connected on Twitter a few weeks ago, a month ago or something like that. But this is the story of everybody's got their difficulties, but this is a pretty charming story. You've gone from starting this thing when you were very young, and then kind of being shut down a little bit by one of your teachers. I don't know how you feel about that term. It's just the one that popped into my head. Off to a formal education, and then experience in business. Which led you to travel all over the world, and then almost through sort of happenstance. This, opportunity to get back on the stage, which then leads to, film work, and then, to audiobook work. It's quite a story.
Oh,
do you ever just stop and say, holy shit, like, how the hell is this? How has this happened to me? Or are you just like, I don't think about it and I just keep my head to it for the next thing?
Yeah, I think it's more that. Life is a series of opportunities and doors opening, and you just got to take them when you can. But I think you've got to put yourself in the place, and it was like describing luck. I think was it Arnold Palmer or Gary Player, one of the old golfers, and someone said to him, "You must be one of the luckiest golfers I know." He said, "Yeah, you know what? The more I practice, the luckier I get." And I think that's the thing. You make your own luck if you put yourself in a place. And I could go, maybe even at my age, go and do maybe a 1 year or a short term, maybe a 2 or 3 month residential acting for TV, which would give me a certificate, which would give me enough credits to get on Spotlight, which then would get me out there. It's just a choice. I'm still married to the girl that saw me in the codpiece in in Henry IV Part 1.
Good for you.
And
that's how it's done.
This works quite well. I can go, I can get on TV. It's fun. Then it's kind of like it comes on. Oh, there he is. Oh no. Oh no. Oh, there you are. Oh, it's the back of your head. We do those kind of games. My wife wants to make up a cutout of all their different body parts from different programs.
That'd be an interesting avatar. Hold on a second. A second. We got Peaky Blinders is popular here in India as well. If not been able to catch it yet, we'll have to put it to the top of the list now. So okay.
Oh,
cool. Cool. Can you let him know? Do you know what episode, like what season, what episode you were in, so he can?
Season 5. In about
season 5.
Any of the things of the members of Parliament, I'm in there.
Okay, so any of the Parliament scenes, man, Tony's there. You're going to see him with an appropriately dismayed look at this, ridiculous family who just,
Well, just Tommy at this point.
You haven't met Arthur. Okay, yeah, that will be a whole other conversation. I have a question, if time permits. What is the atmosphere on the set of Peaky Blinders versus The Crown? Does it differ due to the difference in plot, or is it just about the same?
I would say they're in the same. They're both really, really classy productions. So you have a great crew, great team, great directors, and on both those sets, background actors, support actors get treated really, really well.
That's good to hear.
Really part of it, inclusive. I've been on some lower budget things where, I'm not mincing words. We've been treated like shit. I mean, it's been awful. But you're not even referred to as, you some young pup with his jeans hanging halfway down his backside, and and he's coming around. So yeah, I'll have the you, and he's pointing with a walkie-talkie with a rubber thing, and and you're crammed into us, and it's just. And I remember sitting on one thing, and this is very early on. It was a low budget movie. Even so, it's still a movie. And you're there the whole day, working a 12-hour day, early start, 5, 6 in the morning, makeup, costume, and then a lot of sitting around, and then you're on, and then you have to react and do what you're told. And forget where I was going, but that's right. So we were sort of sitting there. We just had this. And one of the guys looks at me and he says, "What did you do in your previous career?" I said, "Well, yeah, before I retired, I was managing director of an oil company." He says, "Yeah, what about you?" He says, "Well, I was a consultant surgeon." And the other guy, "Yeah, I was a senior lawyer." We're sitting here, we're being paid $100 a day. I used to charge out an hour when I was a consultant. And we're being like shit by this young pup who's pointing at us. But Peaky Blinders, no way. It absolutely is fantastic. They're just great shows to be on. They're great cast, great crew, and they're slightly different, I suppose. You get into when you Peaky Blinders is dark. The atmosphere is dark, and it literally is. Those classic Peaky Blinders shots. The room is dark. There's this fake smoke being blown in because Cillian Murphy's doing most of it. I mean, he gets through the. And I did actually in one scene puff on this pipe. It's herbal tobacco, but I'm a non-smoker. I'm really choking on that thing. But it's dark lighting with sort of filtered lights coming through windows and things like that. It's always, a lot of the scenes, and it's just typical of that director's stance. He's creating dark. It's moody. It's sort of underworld. Whereas Crown, it's royal, and I think the atmosphere is royal. And everything's slightly elite because the places we film are elite. So we filmed in a castle that looks like Balmoral. We filmed in I was also in. I didn't get seen because it was a big crowd. The scene for Lord Mountbatten's funeral, which was Winchester Cathedral, but again, bright, very bright. The horse guards, parades, soldiers, uniforms. And the other thing about both of those are the meticulous about detail. Like even the cigarette packets are packets of that age. There's nothing new. The beers, the papers, the newspapers, everything. They are classy productions, and I just felt so proud to be even part of it in a very small way.
It sounds like another level of professionalism. Within within television series and things like that, you could be working on this movie where you're dealing with some punk, so on and so forth, as opposed to where you're working sort of at the highest level. Yeah. And so it's a different feeling, where people are treated with respect and, everyone's there for a purpose and you're recognized as such. And that's important, especially if you're talking to people who have come from other fields. That sort of thing, to realize that, this is where I want to be. Mm-hmm. That it's not all just, some, knucklehead, like you said, with his pants halfway down around his ass, barking at people, and you're like, who the hell are you, buddy? That sort of thing. So that's good that you've had that experience. I got one. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go on. I was just agreeing with you.
One final question, I guess. And I talk about this a lot on, he says, thank you. That's amazing insight. Thank you for answering my question.
You're welcome.
He appreciates it. I talk about this a lot on the show regularly, regardless of what movie we're discussing. or who I'm interviewing. What's your opinion on the current state of filmmaking? Here in Hollywood, I'm seeing, Hollywood's been sort of taken over, in my opinion, but I think it's demonstrably true, by franchises. Part 7 of something, part 15. It's become this thing, of bloated CGI, monstrosities, these sorts of things. And they have their place. Don't misunderstand me. I understand every movie isn't going to be an Attenborough film, or, DeMille or Nolan or, whoever is your, director of choice, Ridley Scott, whatever. But it just seems to be, this maximizing output, diminishing quality sort of situation that's happened here. And like I said, I left America in 2010 and came back in 2020, and Hollywood was completely different. These sorts of things where now it's just, the next thing. And before you have processed, and as an adult, I'm just like, yeah, that was kind of shit. I spent 6 weeks. I'm not talking about Peaky Blinders or The Crown. That's a completely different thing. But a lot of these other things, and by the time I just spent 6 weeks watching that, like, really? And before you get there and have time to sort of, hey, wait a minute, this is bullshit. The next thing has already hit you. These sorts of things. So, I mean, do you have an opinion on that? Maybe you don't. You're like, no, like what I'm doing, because you're seeing something. Your experience seems to be something completely different from that, where you're getting stared down by Tom Wilkinson. So
that was just one. That was just one, and one very special occasion. But no, what I notice is, I've since coronavirus hit us, things have changed a lot. I think we certainly, my wife and I, did a lot of binge watching of series on TV, and actually, it was kind of it did. We noticed a change in our watching pattern, and I think that's happened for quite a lot of people. People, and particularly with pay on demand and various subscriptions like Netflix or Apple TV or Sky. I don't know what else you've got. HBO. You've got various ones. But here, certainly here in the UK, Netflix, Apple, BritBox. There's various, and they are all pumping money. Netflix used to be the big one. Netflix obviously had the big series like The Crown, Outlander. Some great. Although I think that's changed back to Stars now. So you got Stars doing, their own series of things. It's great for us because the amount of work that is being generated is increasing. So from a purely selfish point of view of actually there's a lot more things going on. If I don't get this, there's something else filming. And Scotland is growing. I think it's always been a great place for films when you're looking for it. But actually the theatre, the studios potential now is growing. I was on a superhero movie. Again, this was just a background thing. Filmed for 3 night shoots in Glasgow recently. And it became a certain city in a certain series of superheroes. And so there's lots of things, and then of course there's the castles and the scenery and things like that. But more and more stuff is being done in studios, and I think there's plans for more studios. I think when Outlander is currently, I think it's still filming, and then when that series finishes, we've got Ward Park Studios in Cumbernauld, which could be used. So I think there's more growing in Scotland. There certainly is in Manchester, and there's a lot, down in Shepperton and Pinewood Studios in London. So in the UK, we're getting a lot of the Hollywood money and films, and people coming out and filming here. So and they're funded by things like Netflix, Apple, and those. Is it a good thing? I don't know. I mean, I miss going to the cinema to see a film. And
the cinemas are still closed there?
No. But I miss it. Things are in the cinema. for
And
a week or two, and then they're gone, and then you have to get them on subscription somewhere.
it's a 6-week maximum here.
Yeah, and then some things never make the cinemas. They go straight to it's a Netflix exclusive or it's a Amazon Prime exclusive.
Yeah.
So unless you've got those subscriptions to them, you're not going to see them in the. I'd love to go and see one of my things in the big screen, but most of them is on TV or whatever. So I think it's just a change in the culture. But yeah, if you keep banging things out, then maybe the quality is not good. But fortunately, so far, I think everything I've been involved in, I've been fairly impressed by, the quality of the things
awesome.
that we've been doing. But I'm getting more choosy now. I mean,
yeah. Why wouldn't you? Yeah, you're like, hey, pick what you want to do.
Coffee and that. I'm just going to be a man reading newspaper and that one. And I do
something.
love.
Yeah, I mean, you make the choices that determine, where things are going to go for yourself. So why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you? I just, I've noticed here, and I haven't thought about that that's an interesting perspective in terms that there's a lot of work. I guess is what you're saying. There's a lot more work out there nowadays. I just remember around Christmas, Apple TV had released the Coen Brothers Macbeth with Denzel Washington, Frances McDormand, Brendan Gleeson, these sorts of things, and they had released it in theaters. But because I'm in a relatively small section of Jersey, I would have had to go on 50 miles to a major city, which was Philadelphia, to catch it. But at my local multiplex, whatever the movie was on 17 different, playing 17 different times that day. But that's an interesting perspective. I'd never thought about that. It gives actors a lot more opportunity to work. So, all right, that's a good thing. That's why I asked the question. Okay, thanks for that. I'll bear that in mind the next time I have the discussion. Factor that in. I think that this is as good a place as any to bring things to a close. I know I said an hour. It's run a little bit more than that. I apologize. Is there anything you'd like to discuss that I failed to bring up?
Well, I think we've covered everything. It was good to get Keith on earlier and discuss the Tacker. If you're thinking about buying the book, I'd just say, get the audio book, and then you'll get to hear me. And I'd also be grateful for feedback. There's about 7 different accents in there. I'm very comfortable with the Scottish, the English, my Dutch one. Just anybody's from Holland and Netherlands out there. And that was the one I struggled the most with. There's a couple of American voices on there, South African, Hispanic. So those were quite challenging. But so far, I've had very positive feedback, and
I may try. God, I'm sorry.
Go on. Anyway, it's just good to get feedback, and I can build on that because hopefully we're going to do the Takaran too. But go out and buy it. He gets some more money, then he can afford to pay me. So that's it.
I will have to. I may continue to give it a shot. I've had some, because I was working through ACX, which is Audible. And
that's what I said. It was ACX to get into Audible, so it's very
So it's just, I guess you just got to keep plugging at it.
Mm-hmm.
Got to keep plugging at it like everything else. Okay. Tell people where they can find you online. Do you have a Twitter, dad jokes, or Instagram, Facebook, whatever?
I like you. I have an Instagram page, but I don't understand it. I just put stuff up there and it disappears. It's kind of like gone in 60 seconds, like that movie. It's instant, isn't it? But apparently that's where most artists put it. My daughter does it, and all her actor friends do it. I just find that a little bit. Look at me. A bit too much. I mean, I'll put things up there if I think they're interesting, but generally speaking, I put stuff up on Twitter. I'm on Twitter, and
Tony Atherton.
Yep. And if you want to keep track of my filmography, I've got an IMDb page, and
I'll put both those links in the description.
Yeah, and we update those once they're out, because of NDAs. You can't put anything up there until it's actually been broadcast or shown. So that gets updated. But I give little hints that there's something filming, and so like this week has been a spoof Western. So I had my first film death yesterday. I was gunned down in North Aberdeenshire. There's this little cowboy town that's been built up. The guys can go.
There's a wealth of experience and stories in here. It's been great talking to you. I appreciate you taking the time to come on out and hang out a little bit. And as I'll keep my ear to the ground and my eyes open, but as things get closer or you have new projects, if you'd be interested, I'd be happy to have you back on.
That'd be great. And great talking to you, Mike.
Yeah. All right, everybody. That's it for today. We'll be back tomorrow, 8 p.m. Eastern time. We're going to cover a neo-noir crime drama. We're talking about Mel Gibson's Payback, and we're going to look at the director's cut, not the theatrical version, which is a complete reworking of Helgeland's original film. It's an interesting contrast how you can take basically the same material from the theatrical release and yet complete a completely different film. So that'll be an interesting conversation. My thanks once again to Tony Atherton for stopping in. Hang back for a second, Tony. I'm going to play the outro, and then we'll talk for just a second more.
Okay.